Hi, on this tutorial we will continue practicing procedural textures. On the last procedural episode we saw how to texture not just the surface of an object but also on the inside. Today we will be creating a sonar that can be animated with just one value. If you are new to this series, I recommend you to go through all the videos to catch up by clicking the link on top. I won't be going through all the details of things we already learned in past tutorials, because it would be repetitive and also each tutorial would last forever. So I remind you, you have all the links on the description. We will focus on one part at a time, starting with the most simple, to warm up, in this case the cross. Each time you want to add a node, just hit Shift A, then search the name of the node you are looking for. Also remember to activate Node Wrangler add-on, it will make your life easier when dealing with nodes. We will start by creating the vertical line. At least in my case, maybe this depends on your hardware. When I use very thin lines on procedural textures, I get some flickering and sometimes they even look cropped or dashed. Increasing the viewport samples helps a lot. And don't worry, this won't be visible in renders. Also activate bloom, to have some glow effect on our higher values. Now let's do the same for the horizontal line. Select everything and press Ctrl J to create a frame. This will help keep things easy to understand as we keep adding nodes and making our setup more complex. Next we will create the circles. I will use the same texture coordinate to help reduce the total amount of nodes and keep things as simple as possible. To remove a node from a frame, select it and press Alt-P. If you remember from previous tutorials, to create a circle, you can use distance operation, that will give you the distance from any point to the axis origin. So we will get a scale that grows as it gets away from the center. If you have Node Wrangler installed, you will be able to preview nodes output by holding Ctrl Shift and left-clicking them. Now we will limit this scale with a compare function by selecting a point on its scale and using the epsilon, or tolerance, to control the thickness. Next we will repeat the process, changing the compare value to make the other circles scale. You can copy my values or choose your own to make it a bit different. Now that we have all the circles, we will merge all together. I'll clean up a bit to create a new frame. Now let's mix these two groups. Since we are using add, all intersections of shapes will have values greater than 1. By using clamp we will remove everything that is out of the 0 to 1 scale. Next we will create the background of the sonar. We will use the same technique to create the circle that will be the mask for the texture. I'm using the same size we used for the largest ring. The mask is ready, now let's create the texture. On the next step we will be using a radial symmetry coordinate. If you are interested in exactly how that works, you can check my tutorial on procedural texture patterns. Link in the description. To create the part that turns around in the sonar, we need a radial scale that will give the gradient look we see on it. To achieve this we will use the same process we used on the procedural patterns tutorial. In short, this operation gives us a radial scale that goes from minus pi to pi, or minus 3.14 to 3.14. So we need to change the range of this scale from minus pi to positive pi to 0 to 1. I accidentally placed two minus symbols, turning my negative pi into a positive pi. Now it's working. We will create the mask that defines the range of this turning thing. Don't know exactly how to call it. Then we will also use the circular mask we already created for the background. And now we have to create the texture that will be masked with this shape. We will reuse the radial scale we already created. Don't be discouraged if it is a bit hard to understand everything I'm doing. I also did a lot of mistakes and attempts before getting all this to work correctly. After thinking for a while, I decided to multiply the radial scale by the mask we had already created. The result is that everywhere where the mask has 1, the white part will let the gradient unchanged, and the black part that has a value of 0 will stay black. The only thing we still need to solve is that the scale is growing in the wrong direction. We could multiply by -1 and add 1, or in this case, to avoid adding more nodes, I will just change the range we created and invert the output. Now to make the rotation, we will use a mapping node. To control the rotation separately, I will use a combine node and a value node. I decided to set myself a challenge and control all the animation with just one value, so I will be using math to adapt this 0 to 1 scale to everything we need. In this case, to move the rotating thing one complete cycle, we need 2 pi or 6.28, so we will multiply the value for that number. So when we change the value from 0 to 1, the rotation will be complete. If you are still here, you really want to learn procedural textures. Okay, we have the sonar, let's clean up a bit and give color to this thing. Now let's add a color ramp to give it color. You can change the ramp as you like, there's not a correct or incorrect way here. Since we took just a portion of the radial scale to create our rotating thing, the scale is not 0 to 1 but a 0 to 0.2, and the color ramp uses a 0 to 1 scale. So we will change it with a map range node. Now let's mix it with the background. This part is just personal, you can do as you want with the color. I will also come back to this later to make more adjustments. Now let's mix all we have so far. Okay, now this part is complete. Let's focus on the detected objects now. We will start with a circle. We will later control the size of it with the epsilon of the compare. We will also use an emission shader to animate it. We will start mixing all together, since we need to see the position of our object to combine it with the rotating thing. We will change the position of the object with a mapping node. For this first object I will align it to the rotating thing, on the position it has, with the control value on 0. Now we need to animate it coordinated with the rotating thing. We will be using two things to animate it: its size, and also the value of the emission. We now need to find a value we like to be the brightest moment of the object. And the maximum size we like for it too. Okay, now some math to make our object change as this value goes from 0 to 1. So if I multiply the 0 to 1 scale by 500, it will go from 0 to 500 now. Then I will subtract that value from the fixed 500 I have on the subtract node. This will result on a scale that will go from 500 to 0 as the value from the controller goes from 0 to 1. Meaning that the light will be at its peak when the rotating thing is on its position, and it will go darker as it gets further away. As the value goes above 1, the animation fails, but we can fix that with a fraction operation, that will only output the fraction part of a number, resulting on a loop from 0 to 1. Here I'm doing some adjustments to the colors. Now let's take care of the size animation. We will use almost the same technique. At first I didn't notice that I set the first math node to add instead of multiply, and also forgot to plug from the output of the fraction operation instead of the value node directly. That's why the weird result. Now it's looking nice. To create the second light, we will copy the entire setup. Then we will move the object with the mapping node to the desired location. We then have to check at what value the rotating thing aligns with it. Use this value to subtract it from the value node, just the fraction. This way it will sort of offset the animation. If you made it this far, you should be very proud of yourself. This could be a bit frustrating and complex to understand, but it feels more natural with time and practice. Let's clean up a bit and create a basic animation. The object and the node need to be selected to change the mode to linear. Now a quick animation render. Remember, if you find this tutorials useful, consider taking a moment to like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Also be sure to click the bell to be reminded when a new video comes out. Thanks for watching.